tonight, Sean Hannity, with a big announcement this evening, as we're set to hear from.
I don't have an announcement, Sean.
You know, that's okay. That's fair.
I'm not making it. All right, I'm running for president. No, I'm not. Just kidding. All right, well, thank you. Great job. And welcome to Hannity. We begin with this Fox News alert. It is a busy news night. A lot at stake at this hour. Republicans now are officially projected to win the majority in the U.S. House of Representatives. Yes. Now, GOP leader Kevin McCarthy is expected to be the next Speaker of the House. Nancy Pelosi, she will be handing over the gavel in January. And for the next 2 years, the Biden administration will finally be held in check.
Good.
We're also tracking a scary situation in Europe tonight, where NATO ally Poland was hit by what is believed to be.
I'm going to throw in my thought about here with
tonight,
what's happening over there with Mussolini. I think that's the
question is your President Joe
my take on, and I hate to say this, I hate to think this, but I think that missile, killing those 2 people in Poland. I hate to think it, but I think that's like the first. That could be the first shot in World War III.
He filed paperwork to officially run for president in 2024. We will take you there live as it happens. Joining us now with a preview, Fox and Friends weekend co-host. He's also hosting the Patriot Awards this week, and I'm honored to be a small part of it. Thank you, Pete.
Trump's coming out.
Glad to be a part of it. Also joining us, former Arkansas governor and father of the next governor of the great state of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee. You can see the First Lady and Donald Trump coming out. Governor Huckabee, want to get your take on tonight's announcement? Big night for Republicans. They officially win the House. Your initial thoughts?
Well, I'm not surprised Donald Trump is running. I'm a little surprised that he's doing it before the Georgia runoff. And for many of us, the only focus we want is getting that. I'm going to Georgia tomorrow to campaign for Herschel Walker. I hope that once the president gets this announcement out, that he goes to Georgia, or that he uses all of the influence he can to try and make sure we win that Senate seat, because it's critical for the next 2 years. It's the most important thing that we need to do, especially for the next 3 weeks.
Let's get your take, Pete. Headset.
Sean, how many times has Donald Trump been counted out? How many times has he overcome the naysayers? He is the center of the America First movement, has been since he announced in 2015. This is a huge speech for him. He's got to cast a vision for the future, talk about why his leadership is needed in America more today, provide the contrast with the disaster of Joe Biden. He's got the biggest of stages, an opportunity to announce yet again, and the Republican Party, which he remade, is one he wants to lead again. And tonight we're going to get a chance to hear him make that case.
Well, he's certainly laying down a marker, and that he is in. And, whether other people get in or not, Pete, I guess it's anybody's guess. I think the Republican Party, I think it's likely that other people will probably try to go up against him in the primary. But anyway, it looks like he's going to the podium. No, maybe not. He's walking past the podium.
You're playing to the crowd.
One thing that I think nobody really seems to understand when you look at anybody that's running for president, we don't know what it's going to be like in 2024, Mike Huckabee. And if the economy stinks and the world is on fire, who knows what will happen? Here's Donald Trump. Right.
And on behalf of Melania, myself, and our entire family, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. It's a very special occasion at a very special place. You and all of those watching are the heart and soul of this incredible movement, the greatest country in the history of the world. It's very simple.
Respectfully disagree. I'm Australian, so.
Like it, this great movement of ours. Never been anything like it, and perhaps there will never be anything like it again. There's never been anything to compete with what we have all done. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and my fellow citizens, America's comeback starts right now.
Yes.
2 years ago, when I left office, the United States stood ready for its golden age. Our nation was at the pinnacle of power, prosperity, and prestige, towering above all rivals, vanquishing all enemies, and striding into the future, confident and so strong. In 4 short years, everybody was doing great. Men, women, African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, everybody was thriving like never before. There was never a time like this. We turned the page on decades of globalist sellouts and one-sided trade deals, lifted millions out of poverty, and together we built the greatest economy in the history of the world. When the virus hit our shores, I took decisive action and saved lives and the U.S. economy. And by October of the same year, America was roaring back with the #1 fastest economic recovery ever recorded. How about that? All of the incoming administration and all they had to do was just sit back and watch. Inflation was non-existent. Our southern border was by far the strongest ever. And because the border was so tight, drugs were coming into our country at the lowest level in many, many years. Importantly, after decades of rising energy costs, the United States had finally attained the impossible dream of American energy independence, which soon would have turned into energy dominance. For the first time in memory, China was reeling and back on its heels. Never seen that before, because the United States was outdoing them on every single front, and China was paying billions and billions of dollars in taxes and tariffs. The farmers know that because they got 28 billion of it. No president had ever sought or received $1 for our country from China until I came along, and we were getting hundreds of billions of dollars. Many people think that because of this, China played a very active role in the 2020 election. Just saying. Sure, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Instead of jobs and factories leaving America for China, they were for the first time ever leaving China for America. Businesses were pouring back because of our historic tax and regulation cuts, the biggest in both categories in history, bigger even than what Ronald Reagan was able to produce, and he produced a lot. China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea were in check and respected. They respected the United States, and quite honestly, they respected me. I knew them well. The vicious ISIS caliphate, which no president was able to conquer, was decimated by me and our great warriors in less than 3 weeks, and al-Baghdadi, its founder, was hunted down and killed. North Korea had not launched a single long-range missile since my summit with Chairman Kim Jong-un nearly 3 years before. We developed a relationship, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Very good thing, actually, because look at what's happening today. My opponents made me out to be a warmonger and just a terrible person who would immediately go into war. They said during the 2016 campaign that if he becomes president, there will never be a war within weeks. And we will have wars like you've never seen before. It will happen immediately. And yet, I've gone decades without a war, the first president to do it for that long a period. The world was at peace, America was prospering and our country was on track for an amazing future because I made big promises to the American people, and unlike other presidents, I kept my promises. Thank you very much. Under our leadership, we were a great and glorious nation, something you haven't heard for quite a long period of time. We were a strong nation, and importantly, we were a free nation. But now we are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. For millions of Americans, the past 2 years under Joe Biden have been a time of pain, hardship, anxiety, and despair. As we speak, inflation is the highest in over 50 years. Gas prices have reached the highest levels in history and expect them to go much higher now that the strategic national reserves, which I filled up, have been virtually drained in order to keep gasoline prices lower just prior to the election. Joe Biden has intentionally surrendered our energy independence. There is no longer even a thought of dominance, and we are now begging for energy help from foreign nations, many of whom find us detestable. Our southern border has been erased, and our country is being invaded by millions and millions of unknown people, many of whom are entering for a very
That's all the
bad
Democrats doing.
and sinister reason. And you know what that reason is. We will be paying a big price for this invasion into our country for years to come. Hundreds of thousands of pounds of deadly drugs, including very lethal fentanyl, are flooding across the now open and totally porous southern border. The blood-soaked streets of our once great cities are cesspools of violent crimes, which are being watched all over the world as leadership of other countries explain that this is what America and democracy is really all about. How sad. The United States has been embarrassed, humiliated, and weakened for all to see. The disasters in Afghanistan, perhaps the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, where we lost lives, left Americans behind, and surrendered $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment anywhere in the world. And Ukraine, which would have never happened if I were your president, are something.
I remember that.
And even the Democrats admit that. That's something I've seen them admit over and over again. But our enemies are speaking of us with scorn and laughter and derision because of those two events. But there are many more. Even just today, a missile was sent in, probably by Russia, to Poland, 50 miles into Poland. And people are going absolutely wild and crazy. And they're not happy. They're very, very angry. Now we have a president who falls asleep at global conferences, was held in contempt by the British Parliament over Afghanistan. Thanks to the words of wisdom, he said thank you to the wrong country for inviting him to a major summit on the environment of all things. They fly for days to get there, and then he calls the country a name that was actually a country on another continent. And he's leading us to the brink of nuclear war, a concept unimaginable just 2 short years ago. You cannot mention the nuclear word. It's too devastating. The Green New Deal and the environment, which they say may affect us in 300 years, is all that is talked about. And yet nuclear weapons, which would destroy the world immediately, are never even discussed as a major threat. Can you imagine? They say the ocean will rise 1/8 of an inch over the next 200 to 300 years. But don't worry about nuclear weapons that can take out entire countries with one shot. Something is wrong with their thinking. Under Biden and the radical Democrats, America has been mocked, derided, and brought to its knees, perhaps like never before. But we are here tonight to declare that it does not have to be this way. It does not have to be this way. Two years ago, we were a great nation, and soon we will be a great nation again.
Say it, Donald.
The decline of America is being forced upon us by Biden and the radical left lunatics running our government right into the ground. This decline is not a fate
Come on, say
we
it.
must accept. When given the choice, boldly, clearly, and directly, I believe the American people will overwhelmingly reject the left's platform of national ruin, and they will embrace our platform of national greatness and glory to America. Glory.
Come on, say it, Donald. Say it.
Exactly 1 week ago, our citizens voted in the important midterm elections. And despite a ridiculously long and unnecessary period of waiting, far longer, in fact, than any third world country, just a short time ago, the Republicans won back control of the House of Representatives. And it was with a great Trump-endorsed candidate, Congressman-elect Kevin Kiley, who is a fantastic person, And I'm very happy it was his vote that did it. But we now won back. This happened just an hour ago. Much criticism is being placed on the fact that the Republican Party should have done better. And frankly, much of this blame is correct. But the citizens of our country have not yet realized the full extent and gravity of the pain our nation is going through. And the total effect of the suffering is just starting to take hold. They don't quite feel it yet, but they will very soon. I have no doubt that by 2024, it will sadly be much worse, and they will see much more clearly what happened and what is happening to our country. And the voting will be much different. 2024.
Here it is. This has got to be it now. No tricks.
Are you getting ready?
This has got to be it. Come on.
And I am too.
This is
I
it.
do want to point out that in the midterms, my endorsement success rate was 232 wins and only 22 losses. You don't hear that from the media. And this is an elegant night and an elegant place. And I'm not going to use the term fake news media. So we're going to keep it very elegant. But you don't hear that from the media. But I think you will, because people are starting to see what happened. That's some score. And then the primaries was 98.6%. But they were still trying to blame me. And the reason for the success and that unprecedented success rate is that the Trump administration changed our nation on trade, on securing the border with the strongest, safest border ever in the history of our country, on Islamic terrorism. We had practically just about, not that I can think of, no Islamic attacks, terrorist attacks during the Trump administration. And in fact, we got along very well with the various countries, including coming up with the Abraham Accords. That's a great thing, the Abraham Accords. But it's because of cutting taxes and cutting regulations at the highest level ever, and on building the greatest economy any time in the history of the world, there's never been an economy like we had just 2 years ago. Despite the outcome in the Senate, we cannot lose hope. And we must all work very hard for a gentleman and a great person named Herschel Walker, a fabulous human being who loves our country and will be a great United States Senator. Herschel Walker, get out and vote for Herschel, and he deserves it. He was an incredible athlete. He'll be an even better senator. Get out and vote for Herschel Walker. We elected a group of incredibly talented America First leaders who will be stars of our party for many years to come. In the popular vote, another thing that's not discussed for the House, we must remember that Republicans won 5 million more votes, the largest margin in many, many years, over the Democrats. 5 million more votes. That's a big thing. Breaking the radical Democrats' grip on Congress was crucial. So in other words, because of our great congressmen and all of our great congressmen and congresswomen, we've taken over Congress. Nancy Pelosi has been fired, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
I told them, I said, if you just keep a little bit lower standard, you're going to have a big victory. They said, let's win by 40 seats. Let's win by 50. I said, if you win by 2 seats, be happy. But she's on her way to another country right now. She's been fired. But we always have known that this was not the end. It was only the beginning of our fight to rescue the American dream. And it's a word, you know, he used 2 words. I don't want to be Joe. It's 2 words, American dream. That was not good what he did. There are a lot of bad things, like going to Idaho and saying, welcome to the state of Florida. I really love it. In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for
Yes. Yes. That's it. Fantastic. Well, I don't have to use the poll anymore. We all know the answer now.
So many incredible friends and family here tonight. It's such a beautiful thing. Some people say, how do you speak before so many people all the time? When there's love in the room, it's really easy. If you want to know the truth, you ought to try it sometime. Together, we will be taking on the most corrupt forces and entrenched interests imaginable. Our country is in a horrible state. We're in grave trouble. This is not a task for a politician or a conventional candidate. This is a task for a great movement that embodies the courage, confidence, and the spirit of the American people. This is a movement. This is not for any one individual. There's a job for tens of millions of proud people working together from all across the land and from all walks of life, young and old, black and white, Hispanic and Asian, many of whom we have brought together for the very, very first time. If you look at the numbers, if you look at what's happened with Hispanic, with African American, with Asian, and just look at what's happening. This is a party that has become much bigger, much stronger, much more powerful, can do much more good for our country. This is a job for grandmothers and construction workers, firefighters, builders, teachers, doctors, and farmers who cannot stay quiet any longer. You can't stay quiet any longer. You're angry about what's happening to our country. Our country is being destroyed before your very eyes. It's a job for every aspiring young person and every hardworking parent, for every entrepreneur and underappreciated police officer who is ready to shout for safety in America. The police are being treated so badly. These are great people that can straighten out the crime. They're the ones that know how to do it. We have to give them back their respect and their dignity. This will not be my campaign. This will be our campaign all together. Because the only force strong enough to defeat the massive corruption we are up against is you, the American people. It's true. The American people, the greatest people on earth, we love them all. And we love both sides. We're going to bring people together. We're going to unify people. And it was happening in the previous administration, previous to the previous. And what was bringing them together was success. Prior to COVID coming in, the people were calling me, you wouldn't believe it. People that were so far left, I figured they'd never speak to me and I would never speak to them. But our success was so incredible, like never before. And then COVID started coming in from China. We call it the China virus. Some people call it other things, but it was devastating and we built it back and did an incredible job. But when people say Republicans or Democrats or liberals or conservatives, I say we can all get together. And we were doing that. That was happening just prior because the success was greater than this country has ever had. We were leapfrogging China and leapfrogging everybody else, and everybody wanted a piece of it. But just as I promised in 2016, I am your voice. I am your voice. The Washington establishment wants to silence us, but we will not let them do that. What we have built together over the past 6 years is the greatest movement in history because it is not about politics. It's about our love for this great country, America, and we're not going to let it fail. I am running because I believe the world has not yet seen the true glory of what this nation can be. We have not reached that pinnacle, believe it or not. In fact, we can go very far. We're going to have to go far. First, we have to get out of this ditch. And once we're out, you'll see things that nobody imagined for any country. It's called the United States of America, and it's an incredible place. We are Americans, and we do not have to endure what has taken place in Washington, D.C. This is our country, our government, and the corridors of power, they're our corridors. They're not their corridors. These are our corridors. And we are coming to take those corridors back. So from now until Election Day in 2024, which will come very quickly, we'll go, look at how time flies. Look how fast it's all going. I will fight like no one has ever fought before. We will defeat the radical left Democrats that are trying to destroy our country from within, and likewise protect us all. We want to protect us. We have to be protected from all of those nations out there that are looking to destroy us from beyond our shores. There are lots of nations that hate us gravely. And that's the problem when they look at us in disarray like we are right now, when we go to them begging for oil and we have more liquid gold under our feet than they have or any other nation has, and we don't use it because we're going to them. It's crazy what's happening. We can't let it continue. Joe Biden is the face of left-wing failure and Washington corruption. He had a big G20 dinner tonight. Everybody flew over to wherever they flew over. And guess what? He never showed up. They're still looking for him. What's going on? G20, I used to love that. The leaders, I used to make deals for our country like you wouldn't believe. It was one, give me the next one, give me the next one. And we got them to stop taking advantage of our country. Every nation took advantage of our country. We renegotiated deals with Mexico and Canada, USMCA. We got rid of the worst trade deal ever made. NAFTA, the worst trade deal ever made. That's why the farmers love Trump, because we did a great job, but manufacturers also. And we did a deal. We restructured our terrible deal with Japan, and I did it with Prime Minister Abiy, a great man who unfortunately is so sad. He was a great friend of mine, but a great man, loved his country so much, but we restructured and made it a really terrific deal, and with South Korea and the other countries. And the best of all was what we did to China. We made an incredible deal, but after COVID, I don't even bother talking about it because the devastation that caused for the entire world was too much to bear. I will ensure that Joe Biden does not receive 4 more years in 2020. Can't do it. Our country could not take that. And I say that not in laughter, I say that in tears. Our country could not take 4 more years. It can only take so much. It's all very fragile to start off with. It can only take so much. In 2020, I received the largest number of votes of any sitting president in history by a lot. And we will do it again, but with even more votes this time. Many have noted that huge gains we have made with Latino voters, and I believe we will set even greater records with this crucial vote in 2024. The Hispanic voter, the Latino voter has been unbelievable. Great people, very entrepreneurial people, and they want security. And everyone thought when I did the wall, I built the wall, and they thought, oh, that would hurt me with the Hispanic vote. No, it helped me because they understood. They wanted safety. They wanted security. And they understood the border better than anybody else. So they were amazed that we started that trend, and now we're continuing with that trend. You look at what we've done in Florida, what everybody's doing now in Florida and Texas, along the border in Texas, won every single community. I won every single community. Governor of Texas called. Great gentleman, just got reelected. And he said to me, I'd like to talk to you for a second. Well, he said, you've done something that nobody else has done. You've won every single area along the borders, the longest since Reconstruction. I said, Reconstruction? I guess you call that the Civil War? That's what I call it? That's what I call it. Governor Abbott, very good man, and he's working hard, but it's horrible because what's happening is they're just sending hundreds of thousands of people right through his state, right through Arizona, right through all of the states. What's happening is they're coming up all of the states. And we can't have it anymore. This campaign will be about issues, vision, and success. And we will not stop. We will not quit until we've achieved the highest goals and made our country greater than it has ever been before. And we can do that. We can do it. Our victory will be built upon big ideas, bold ambitions, and daring dreams for America's future. We need daring dreams. It is not enough merely to complain or oppose. We don't want to be critics. We don't want to be complainers. I never wanted to be a critic. I never respected critics. They tell people what's wrong, but they can't do it themselves. We will win because we will fight with every measure of our strength and with every ounce of our energy to lift up the working men and working women of America and to restore the fabric of this nation. The radical left Democrats have embraced an extreme ideology of government domination and control. Our approach is the opposite, one based on freedom, values, individual responsibility, and just plain common sense. It's common sense. In 2 years, the Biden administration has destroyed the U.S. economy, just destroyed it. With victory, we will again build the greatest economy ever. It will take place quickly. We will build the greatest economy ever. And if you remember, I did it twice. I did it before COVID and then handed off something where the stock market was higher than just prior to COVID coming in. And we did it twice, and we will do it again, but this time we'll do it bigger, stronger, better than anybody can even imagine. And one of the beautiful things of the pause, if there is such a thing as a beautiful thing, but one of the important factors of the pause is that we see how bad they've done. So we will be able to do it properly, and it will be much easier. Everybody will agree with us because everybody sees what a bad job has been done during this 2-year period, and it will be a 4-year period. Everybody sees that. It will be much easier for us to do what has to be done. We will immediately tackle inflation and bring down to a level that it was, we were at 0, but actually the best number is 1%. Do you know that? You don't want it really 0, but we were at 0. We actually got it to exactly 1%, the perfect number. One thing every economist agrees, don't have it 0, have it like at 1%. They even say 1 to 2, but I said, let's do 1. And we had it at 1%, and we had it there for a long period of time, and we had the value of the dollar. We had it so that this country could make a lot of money, and I fought other countries where they devalued their dollar, they devalued their currency, whether it was the pound or whether it was the yuan or the yen. And I used to fight like cats and dogs with the leaders of other countries because they were stealing from us. When they did that, they had artificial devaluations of their currency. It's a very important thing. I haven't even heard it mentioned in 2 years. It's a very important thing. It's very hard for us to compete when they do that artificially. And they had to pay a big price when they did it. And they never really did it for very long. I said, we're not going to do business with you anymore as a country. And they believed me. And they let it go back up. Instead of putting America last, as the Biden administration has done very, very openly and bravely, because I can't imagine saying, let's put America last. I think it takes courage. We will again put America first. Every policy. Thank you very much. We do love our country, isn't it? That's why we're here. I didn't need this. I had a very nice, easy life. This is something I didn't need, and a lot of you people don't need either, but we love our country. We have to take care of our country. We have to save our country. Every policy must be geared toward that which supports the American worker, the American family, and businesses, both large and small, and allows our country to compete with other nations on a very level playing field, which we never had until I came along and the Trump administration came along. And now we're losing it. They're moving back into China. They're moving back into these other countries. It's horrible. That means low taxes, low regulations, and fair trade, much of which I've already completed, but now will even greatly enhance. Other countries should pay for the privilege of coming into the American marketplace. They have to pay to come into our country and make all of that money, take it away from us. And thanks to the Trump administration, still the best and the biggest country in the world is what we have. We have the best and the biggest. If you remember, for many years, you can look in your projection books, China was going to take over from us as the largest economy in the world in 2018 or 2019. I said, I don't like that timing. And I was with President Xi, who's now president for life. I called him king. He said, no, I'm not the king. I said, yes, you are the king. You're president for life. It's the same thing. But I said, President, you can't do these things. You can't. Remember, they had a China 25. That means China was going to take over virtually the whole world economy by 25. I said, that's not a nice sign. I don't want that sign. They took it down. They took down the whole slogan. Probably will be coming back at some point in the near future. But I found it very insulting. I said, I find that very insulting. On day one, we will end Joe Biden's war on American energy. And you will see, when that happens, you will see energy costs come down. And because energy is so big and so important, you will see inflation dropping. You will see it come down. It's a thing of beauty. And you wouldn't think it's that complicated. Now, what has been complicated a little bit is what's happened to so many other things. I believe originally started by this energy disaster. We were $1.87 a gallon for gasoline, and now it's hitting $5, $6, $7, and even $8, and it's going to go really bad. The socialist disaster known as the Green New Deal, which is destroying our country, and the many crippling regulations that it has spawned, will be immediately terminated so that our country can again breathe and grow and thrive like it should. It's very, very much hurting our country. Germany tried it, Germany tried it. They were up for about a year. Remember I sent to Angela. Remember Angela? Do you remember Angela? Nobody's remembering her now.
Just joining us, President Trump in Mar-a-Lago announcing his 2024 presidential run. We're going to get back to the speech in just a minute. Let's get some quick snap reaction first from Pete Hegseth, who's been watching along with us. Pete, he went through every issue of success, every issue of failure as it relates to the Biden administration, how this country has changed so dramatically in the last 2 years. I just got an early copy of the text just now, and I'm looking at it. We'll go back in a minute when he has a pretty important close. But your thoughts so far?
Well, Sean, nothing like the original. He went back to the themes that put him in the White House, from fair trade to borders to ending nonsense foreign wars to saying we, the people, have been ignored by Washington, D.C. It's a forward-looking speech that recognizes the disaster of the last 2 years. He said, as president, I delivered for you where other presidents have not. This looks like Trump in as good a form as you've ever seen him, sticking to the issues that matter to his voters, making the case to Republican primary voters that he's the guy to continue to be the standard bearer as the original that remade the party. There will be others, many of which leverage their association with Trump to get where they are, who will try to be like Trump. There's only one original who got to the White House and fought. And I think if he stays on message the way he did tonight, he's got a formidable case to make to a Republican electorate.
Governor Huckabee, we will lift up the working men and women. We will restore the fabric of this great nation. We declare it does not have to be this way. America's comeback starts right now. I kept my promises. We are now a nation in decline, and Americans are suffering pain, hardship, anxiety, despair. And, America has now become mocked, derided, and brought to its knees. Could you have imagined all this happening in 2 short years? Because I frankly couldn't.
Sean, the construct of the speech is pitch perfect. If he keeps on like this tonight, he is unbeatable in 2024. Nobody can touch him. Not a Republican, not a Democrat. He stayed on message. One of the key things he said, this is not my campaign, this is our campaign. He has made it about the American people. He's reminded them that the reason they voted for him once and most of us twice was because he was fighting for us. And he made the comment, this is not about critics and complainers. He's looking forward. I'm telling you, this was an absolutely brilliant speech, the best I've heard him give in a long time. And he stays on this message. I agree with Pete. He stays and keeps it between the ditches. And this focus, he's unbeatable.
I think you might be able to make the case, Pete Hegseth, all of his policies, and he went through a list of all of them, and he talked about inflation non-existent. He talked about secure borders. He talked about his defeat of the caliphate. He talked about energy independence. He talked about how peace through strength worked, and how he kept his promises, as I said. Then he compared it to higher gas prices, record high inflation, surrendering energy independence, our southern borders. He called it an invasion. And along with it, fentanyl and opioids, and what a failure it's been. The failure in Afghanistan, the failure in Ukraine. All of these things, I know people might, I've had many people over the years, Pete, say, the policies are perfect. Does he have to fight that much? And, and send out these tweets and all. I'm sure you've gotten the same questions too. And I'm thinking, well, if you were lied about for 3 years about Russia, you might be a little defensive and a little combative also.
And he terminated
Well, Sean, he had to fight to get just on the debate stage on the Republican side to be the nominee. It was always a fight. And then from there, he was lied about. So he's had to be a fighter. He is the preeminent fighter for freedom, for America first of our generation. Absolutely no doubt about it. Then once he got there, to your point, Sean, he delivered on every prerogative any conservative, Republican, or America first supporter would have wanted. He said he would do it, and then he did it from the Supreme Court to the ISIS caliphate to energy dominance to taxes across the board. He was committed to it. He took the slings and arrows. They're even coming out tonight from media outlets. Right now, the headlines are pre-written about who Donald Trump is. He's taken those arrows on behalf of everyone else and delivered. If he reminds voters of that, stays disciplined on those tops, it makes it about us, about we the people, about they're coming after you. I'm just standing in the way. Those lines that he's made iconic. People will be reminded, despite the noise, of how good their life was because of the policies of Donald Trump, and pull the lever for it. It's not going to be easy to beat this guy. I agree with Governor Huckabee. He's at the top of his game, having had the results, making the case, and you can be riding a wave or have other arguments. The original is a flavor in and of itself, and you're seeing that tonight from Donald Trump.
Let me bring in Congressman Jim Jordan and Monica Crowley. Jim, you've always been a champion, a big supporter of Donald Trump. When you look at this Donald Trump tonight, a very serious, very powerful speech. This is Donald Trump, and it's game time for him.
Yeah, you're exactly. I think Pete and the governor had it exactly right. This is our campaign. That is the key line. Sean, I think of the great coaches. The great coaches are the ones where their athletes know that coach puts their athletes' interests first. That is exactly what President Trump has done for the American people. When you've been to these rallies, these huge rallies, and President Trump has a great line. He says, "The left comes after me because I'm fighting for you." His audience knows that. His supporters know that. There is a bond. There is a relationship that forms. And so that very first line, which is America's comeback starts today, that is what this is about. And that is why so many people are attracted to this guy and how he fights for this country, because they know he puts their interests first, their family's interests first, and America's interests first. And that is what matters more than anything, especially now with what we've seen from Joe Biden and the left.
And by the way, what an appropriate day. Congratulations, Jim Jordan. You are now officially going to be investigating a lot of things that have gone under the radar for the last number of years. Looking time for all of that. Monica Crowley, let's get your thoughts before we go back to the president.
Yeah, isn't it remarkable, Sean and Jim, that on the same night President Trump files and announces for president, the Republicans secured the majority in the House of Representatives. Yeah. So, look, President Trump has taken a severe pounding over the last 7 years. I've never seen anything like it. It is a miracle that the man is still standing. And he's certainly taken a pounding over the last week or so after the midterms. But this man has always put the forgotten man and woman first. When he said that line tonight about this is not my campaign, this is our campaign altogether, it reminded me back in 2016 when Mrs. Clinton had a slogan that said, "I'm with her," and Trump turned around and said, "I'm with you." And that kind of fighting spirit for the American people, and it's not just a campaign promise anymore. He has a long track record of being president, actually delivering for the forgotten man and woman. That's the kind of thing he is resurrecting tonight. He has turned the page on 2020. This was a forward-looking address based on policy and principle and hope for delivering America out of this historic catastrophe known as the Biden presidency.
Let's get some quick commentary from our friend Joe Concha and Leo 2.0 Terrell. Leo, I don't think there's a bigger fan in the country of Donald Trump than you. I'm watching this president at this hour, and I'm seeing a guy that looks like he is dead on focus that this is real.
Hey, Sean, on your program 2 years ago, I came out on your program and told you my support for President Trump. First time I ever voted for a Republican. Why? You can see it tonight. He cares. He cares about the American people, and the American people resonate towards Trump. This is what he has that the other candidates will never obtain: the ability to draw in the crowd because they trust him, and he has a record to run on. This is a guy who is very comfortable in front of the American people because they trust him. And I'll tell you right now, I'm more determined than ever before. On your program 2 years ago, more now, I'm a big Trump supporter because he cares about America. As a civil rights attorney, I care, and that's why I'm supporting Trump again.
You know, one thing that I would argue, Joe Concha, the president has made his case about issues involving elections and fraud, etc. No talk of that tonight. He has seemed to have evolved into, he would like to see states evolve paper ballots like Canada and like France and like Great Britain. And you have partisan observers watch the vote count and watch the vote eat. And, you know, I think that is probably a big step in many people's minds that they said, okay, we've heard that point. Now it's about the future because elections are about the future.
That's correct. The tone was the right one here, Sean, no question. It felt more like a State of the Union address and less like a rally speech. Donald Trump tonight largely stuck to the issues, all the crises that are ailing this country, and it was discipline. He was largely positive in terms of his vision. Sure, he took a couple shots at Joe Biden, but it was benign stuff in Trump terms. And he reminded those watching of his various accomplishments as president. He outlined a bold contrast with what the Biden administration had done and how it's performed in terms of inflation, crime, the border, energy independence, foreign policy, and compared it to where things were when he was president. It was also about, as you said, what he didn't say. No talk about stolen elections or 2020. He didn't attack or insult any of his potential opponents in the Republican primary, whether that be Governor Ron DeSantis, Florida, Governor Glenn Youngkin, Virginia. That is smart. So this felt more like an address to the joint session of Congress. It sounded presidential, and I think it probably surprised more than a few folks that he went about it this way. If he continues to do this and sticks to the issues, it's going to be a very interesting primary and general election. 721 days away, Sean. I looked it up before we came on, until Election Day 2024.
You know, Leo, if Donald Trump, I would argue his wheelhouse is when he is talking about the forgotten men and women in this country. And the forgotten men and women in this country have suffered under the Biden New Green Deal socialist agenda. And that is the message, frankly, that the entire Republican Party needs to take. I'm going to go back to the speech, though, but I'll give you the last 15 seconds here.
Well, thank you, Sean. And I'll tell you right now, I do also got people who are alive.
Ribbon. I refuse to create them anymore. It was just a joke. It was New York people wanting to be on a committee for publicity reasons. No more blue ribbon committees. That's the only way you're going to solve the problem. And I hope politicians are listening because they should do it quickly. Joe Biden has also proven that he is committed to indoctrinating our children, even using the Department of Justice against parents who object. It's a terrible thing. It's so sad what's happening. When I'm in the White House, our schools will cease pushing critical race theory as they were. Radical civics and gender insanity, or if they do that, they will lose all federal funding, but we'll get them to stay. And I will be the president who finally fixes education in America. We were doing great. We were starting to really get it right. We will not let men, as an example, participate in women's sports. Is that okay? No men. My people tell me, sir, that's politically incorrect to say. I said, that's okay, I'll say it anyway if you don't mind. We've had tremendous problems, and you know, it's very unfair to women, just very, very unfair. We will defend the rights of parents, and we will defend the family as the center of American life. But who would think, standing up here 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that a politician, and I don't like to think of myself as a politician, but I guess that's what I am. I hate that thought. But that a politician would be up saying we will defend parental rights. Of course you're going to defend it. Who would think that we even have to mention this? Who would think it even should be a subject to be talked about? We have to defend parental rights. Can you believe this? As commander-in-chief, I will get Biden's radical left ideology out of our military, and I did. And in the first day, they put it back. They signed an executive order and they put it back. It was gone. We will abolish every Biden COVID mandate and rehire every patriot who was fired from our military with an apology and full back pay. Thank you. And they deserve an apology, and they deserve full back pay, and they'll get it. And unlike Biden possibly getting us into World War III, which can seriously happen, I will keep America out of foolish and unnecessary foreign wars, just as I did for 4 straight years. We will again have peace through strength. That's all it is. As events overseas have shown, to protect our people from the unthinkable threat of nuclear weapons and hypersonic missiles, the United States must also build a state-of-the-art next-generation missile defense shield. We need it. The power of these missiles and the power of a word that I refuse to say, nuclear. We have to have it. We need a defense shield. And we have to do it, and we actually have the technology, and we're going to build it. Just as I rebuilt our military, I will get this done. I rebuilt our entire military, which nobody talks about. When I got there, we had jet fighters that were 48 years old. We had bombers that were 60 years old. We had bombers where their grandfathers flew them when they were done. And now the grandchild is flying the bomber, but not anymore. But as I've said before, the gravest threats to our civilization are not from abroad, but from within. None is greater than the weaponization of the justice system, the FBI, and the DOJ. We must conduct a top-to-bottom overhaul to clean out the festering rot and corruption of Washington, D.C. Thank you. And I'm a victim, I will tell you. I'm a victim. Think of it. The FBI offered $1 million to Christopher Steele, who wrote the fake dossier, if he will lie and say that the fake dossier was true. And he refused to do it, so it had to be really fake. And then they hired somebody, Demchenko, for $200,000 a year to focus on Trump and to get Trump and other things, including the raid of a very beautiful house that sits right here. The raid of Mar-a-Lago, think of it. And I said, why didn't you raid Bush's place? Why didn't you raid Clinton? 32,000 emails. Why didn't you raid Clinton's place? Why didn't you do Obama, who took a lot of things with him? We will dismantle the deep state and restore government by the people.
Of the people, by the people, for the people.
To further drain the swamp, I will push for a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on members of Congress. It's time. It's time. And I will ask for a permanent ban on taxpayer funding of campaigns, a lifetime ban on lobbying by former members of Congress and cabinet members. Now I see what they make. They leave the White House or they leave Congress and they're paid millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. No, you have to have a ban. We want a ban on members of Congress getting rich by trading stocks with insider information. And many of our great members agree with that. They actually agree with that. And of course, we will do whatever it takes to bring back honesty, confidence, and trust in our elections. To eliminate cheating, I will immediately demand voter ID, same-day voting, and only paper ballots.
All right, the president announcing that he is running for president for 2024. While I'm continuing coverage on the Fox News channel, let not your heart be troubled. Laura takes it from here.
Yeah, we're still on.
And as Sean said, President Trump continues to speak. He spoke now almost for about 57 minutes or so.
Over now, man.
2024 is off and running. We're going to dip back in and see what he's still saying.
10 o'clock in the evening, no complaints. You had a winner, you had a loser. The loser went home. The winner, he's a friend of mine, nice guy. But he was happy, but there was no complaints. And if there is a complaint, you check it out and you can fix it very easily. You can find out what's going on now. Paper ballots, same day voting, voter ID, so simple. And we want all votes counted by election night.
Yeah, that's what we do in Australia. Like I said, I'm just going to pause the speech here just for a second because that's what we do in Australia. We go paper voting, in-person paper voting. Got to show your ID. It just makes sense. I don't know why progressives and people on the left think that voter ID is racist. I don't get it. It's to prove that you are who you are. It's to I sound like that. I don't make sense, but if you have ID and you can vote, and you're showing you're a citizen of the country. You live where you say you live. You live where you're voting. You're part of that electorate where you're voting for your representative. I mean, that's not hard. So, I'll talk a bit more at the end of the speech.
They spend all of the money for machines and all of this stuff, and they end up 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later. By that time, everyone forgot there was even an election. It's horrible. And this doesn't happen. I said it before. It doesn't happen in third world countries. They do better than we do. It's horrible what's happening with our election and election process. And I'll get that job done. That's a very personal job for me. I take that very personally. But this is just the beginning of our national greatness agenda, and that's what we call it, a national greatness agenda, because our country can be greater than it ever was. Our country was great. Our country's not great anymore. Our country's a laughingstock right now. But our country can be greater than it ever was before, by a lot. There will be more, much more to come in the months ahead. There are so many things we can do. Many of them are not even hard to implement. The journey ahead of us will not be easy. Anyone who truly seeks to take on this rigged and corrupt system will be faced with a storm of fire that only a few could understand, right? I happen to have some children in the front row. They understand. In fact, well, one boy, stand up, Eric. I think he got more subpoenas than any man in the history of our country. So unfair. Al Capone, you all heard of the great gangster? Al Capone got far less. Billy the Kid got almost done. Jesse James, no. Eric Trump got more subpoenas.
Now we're going to go back to former President Trump when news warrants. Just 1 week after the 2022 midterms. And look at this.
So I said I'm going to Pause it again. All right, so that's it. Donald Trump running for re-election again. Great news. Great news for America. I'm so happy that that's happened. Like I said, after watching 2 years of what Joe Biden's done, and well, just from an outsider's perspective, looking in and seeing what's happened in just 2 years of a 4-year presidency, and seeing what Joe Biden's done to the country. It's not what he's done for the country, because he's done nothing for the country, but what he's done to the country. I honestly think you can only take 4 years of 4 years of Biden. So great news that Trump is running again. Like I said, I'm over the moon with that. And you know, since we got the best of it. All right, I'm going to end the stream here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for liking. Thank you so much for subscribing. You guys are fantastic. I can't do what I do without you guys, whether I'm playing video games or or reacting to politics. I can't do what I do without you guys. You guys grow my channel. You guys are just the biggest part of my channel. Like I said, I love doing what I do. I love doing this. I love talking to you guys. And so, like I said, so until tomorrow, I'll be back again tomorrow. So until tomorrow, work hard, be good to each other. I love you guys. Bye.